All right, our committee meeting, January the 19th, 2024, to order. Regent Thomas, would you be kind enough to call the roll, please?
Present.
Regent Ball. Regent Brinkley.
Present.
Regent Brody.
Present.
Regent Dennison. Present. Chair Milliken.
Present.
Regent Nichols.
Present.
Regent Spiller.
Present.
Secretary Thomas. Vice Chair West.
Present.
And Regent Kurtz.
Here. Present.
So we have 10.
We certainly have a good quorum here. Very good. First item on the agenda today is the Academic Affairs Committee. Dr. Bale, turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Chairman Milliken. First of all, let me say I'm sorry I'm not in the room with everyone this morning. I went to bed last night with every intention of being there this morning. The roads were clear and we had a 23-point lead in our men's basketball game.
Thanks for bringing that up, Philip.
And I woke up this morning reminded of what an uncertain, hazardous world we live in. With that introduction, I'm happy to see Provost Fisher there. We have a really ambitious and interesting academic committee agenda. And Provost Fisher, I'll let you start it out.
Thank you very much. We have a set of 9 items to go over to start with. The first one is approval of academic program suspension for adult education graduate certificate. And I'd like to have Dean Murphy talk about why.
Good morning, everyone, and it's a pretty simple explanation. It's due to low enrollment. We've never had a robust enrollment since the inception of the certificate program. There are a number of pedagogical courses that we teach that are cross-listed and used in other ways, and so there are other opportunities within the college for people to study this particular content, and so the faculty have collectively come to the decision that it is time to just let it rest. So here we are.
All right. Any questions? Discussion? We do have 4 of our 5 committee members present, 2 of us via Zoom. So if there are no questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve this recommendation.
So moved.
Okay.
I second the motion.
Have a motion by Regent Spiller and a second by CJ. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. Motion passes.
Great. Number 2. Action item number 2 is approval of academic program suspension for corporate and organizational communication, and Dean Brown is here.
Good morning, everyone. Surrounding this conversation, there is a lot of overlap between our communication studies and our corporate and org pathway. And what with the faculty, we had entered a conversation and decided to spin this program so we can divert resources towards the communication studies, so we can reduce that overlap and also have better conversations around resource management.
Any questions, comments? If not, we'll entertain a motion for this recommendation.
I make a motion.
Have a motion from Regent Nichols. Do I hear a second?
Yeah.
All right, have a motion and a second to approve the suspension of the program as described. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion passes.
Great. Proposal
Action
one,
item 3.
item 3, approval of the Bachelor of Science in Neuroscience degree, and we have Dean Brown here. I don't know if Stuart's online or not.
I'm not sure. So the neuroscience bachelor's grows out of a high volume of requests to have a neuroscience program. This is a program that draws collaboratively from biology, psychological sciences, and also includes chemistry and computer science. And this offers a unique computational neuroscience concentration, as well as concentrations that are more oriented toward medical school. We believe this is based on a number of inquiries we've had and students who've had to go elsewhere. We believe this will attract a large number of students to the university. It's a program in which we have strengths and in which we intend to build on a bachelor's program. So we see this as an area of growth.
I also would say that I see this as a modern curriculum. That is one that has interdisciplinary that goes across areas and combines those areas in an area that I think is fast growing. And if you noted and you looked at the budget, it said that they believe demand will go up and that we will have to add faculty or two. We have already talked about that and figured out ways to do that, so we can handle that too. So I think this is a great institution at this time.
This sounds pretty exciting to me. I'm happy to see this. I was very pleased to see this.
If I might comment, there's a great piece in the Wall Street Journal this morning that talks about higher education, well, some of the challenges we face as an industry. And we've been talking about over and over again, how do you modernize a curriculum? How do you act more nimbly, with more alacrity, to build things that are interdisciplinary and are interesting to students of today? And one of the things we think about all the time is, how do you demonstrate not just theory, but theory that's applied? And what you're seeing throughout all of these new certificates and degree programs is exactly that. And so kudos to the faculty in Ogden and everyone else that has new degree programs coming. You're going to continue to see this kind of work emerge out of the colleges. And it's incentivized by the decentralized budget model, because Dave knows what happens when he gets 100 new students. The budget goes up.
Any other comments? If not, I'll make my own. In all my years on the board, I think this to me is maybe the most exciting new program that we put together. It's been percolating for some time, long time in coming, and the possibilities of where this may lead to, particularly since we have a medical school in Bowling Green now. I think there's going to be just a ton of interesting research possibilities that can grow out of this, and a more fundamental understanding of the brain. I don't know how you get any more exciting than that.
I agree, Dr. Bell.
So, anyone else wish to say anything? If
No,
not,
I agree. I agree with you. I think it would be just a phenomenal advancement to the program to approve that. So I make a motion.
all right. So I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All right. I have a motion and a second for approval of the neuroscience program. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Right. Action item 4.
Action item 4 is in that same vein as we move forward. It's approval of a Bachelor of Science in Data Science, and Dean Thrashers.
Sure. Good morning. I'm going to turn it over to Associate Dean Lebedinsky to give you the specifics of the program, but just want to say that we are extremely excited about this program. First and foremost, it addresses a huge need among employers across the region, across the state, and even nationwide. But secondly, it's such a prime example of putting our heads together across colleges and across departments in those colleges. So 2 departments from the College of Business partnering with 2 departments in Ogden College to pull together resources and strengths that we already have to create a very innovative data science program. It adds an additional STEM program to our portfolio, as well as really collaborating across those resources. So I appreciate Dean Brown's support, Provost Fisher and President Cavoni to help us. This is very different for us and something that we're really excited about. And so I'll turn it over to Dr. Lebedinsky to give you the specifics of the structure.
Thank you, Dr. Thrasher. So I think this program was the interdisciplinary in the best sense of the word, because we truly picked some of the best things we have on campus and packaged them together into a single program. And the way the program is going to be structured, there's going to have a core component, about 42 credit hours, that is going to develop the core skills that students need to have in order to earn this degree. And then students are going to be required to pursue at least one certificate or minor in which they will earn what the data scientists refer to as domain knowledge. And what we would mean by that is knowledge in a specific area. So for example, students would be required to pursue something like a GIS certificate, or emergency data management data science certificate, or health informatics certificate. So in other words, they don't get just the technical skills, but they also learn a particular specialty where they can apply those data skills. Currently, there are only 2 programs in the state of Kentucky, one in Northern Kentucky University, one in Eastern Kentucky University. So I think it presents a tremendous opportunity, because the closest program that exists in this region is going to be at that university south of Nashville. So we hope to capture a pretty significant market with this program.
Very good.
I would add that if you spend any time in Nashville and you spend time with employers in Nashville, this is probably the #1 person. This ability to be a data scientist is it. It ranges across every known area. And my favorite one that I know of is a lady who graduated from that university south of Nashville. At one time, actually does analytics for Major League Baseball, which is done in Nashville, if you don't know. And she had a data science degree, and I would pay to have that job. That would be so cool. That would be
to follow up on what Dr. Fisher said. I think one of the wonderful things about this profession is that with growing acceptance of remote work, especially in the field of data science, this will create opportunities for our students to remain in the state of Kentucky and be employed in very lucrative positions, very lucrative jobs.
And again, I'll only mimic what they said earlier: interdisciplinary, across silos, across colleges, how the future has to be when we talk about curriculums and we talk about new areas of growth.
I was impressed by this statement that this field is projected to grow by 35% over the next 10 years. That means we're getting in cutting edge.
Yeah, and
Right
even as these guys talk who have put it together, they get lots of kudos from me, because they're even talking now about graduate certificates so that people can retool, which people are constantly looking for, those types of things coming down the line. So this is just one of what we see as a future in data science, to be the leader in this area, and hopefully in Nashville.
You said the closest program like this was where?
Oh, there's 2 in the East in Kentucky, and then there's one at MTSU.
I have a question. What's the difference between data science and data analytics? Just quick summary.
Sure, I'll be glad to answer that. So data science, it's more about nuts and bolts. It's about designing the algorithms that do the predictive analytics. Data analytics is more about a presentation of the data. It's about kind of what's higher view. So it's how do you present the insight that you glean from the data to the management, for example. Data scientists are more the kind of the down to the nitty gritty of doing the predictive analytics.
Okay, thank you. It sounds great.
I agree.
Any other comments or questions?
I have a question. So it says that 100% of this is going to be offered like in person. Is that still the plan?
So far, yes, because we're obviously restricted by the courses that we can offer, and ideally we would love to be able to offer this online. But I think, in my opinion, I think there's a much greater market for a much more productive way to put ourselves into an online program would be to create a graduate version of data science. Those are ones particularly successful. Undergraduate program in data science is probably not going to be that appealing to a lot of people because it just takes 4 years to complete. But a graduate one, it can be done quickly. I think that's a much better offering to be presented online.
I would also say certificates too, where people could retool would be another one that would be very good. As we move forward, that would be online. Okay. Great question.
Any other comments, questions? There's a new commercial on TV on some of the financial channels, at least a famous actor dressed up in Western gear in Dodge, and he's basically saying in a world of artificial intelligence, is data the new currency and the new gold? So I think we're all going to hear lots more about data as time goes by. So great program. Good to know we're being proactive there. If there's no other comments or questions, I'll entertain a motion for approval of the Bachelor of Science in Data Science program.
So moved.
Have a second?
A second.
All right, have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Action item 5.
Approval of the graduate certificate in marketing and sales. And
so I'll also turn this one over to Dr. Lucas Forbes to give you the specifics, but this is another example of more of the work that we're doing in the College of Business to, one, modernize our curriculum and to also add offerings, particularly at the graduate level, that allows for folks to come back. We know that the traditional going to be a decline there, approaching that decline. So we want to make sure that we are offering opportunities for those who are out working, who've already completed a bachelor's, to come back, reskill, upskill, and continue their education with us. And marketing was a piece that was essentially missing from our MBA program, in the sense that we have a course in the program, but not an opportunity for folks to really, hone their skills in that marketing area. And that's what this has grown out of. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Forbes to give you the specifics.
Yeah, thanks. As Evelyn said, within an MBA curriculum, it's very common to have a marketing option. To give you an example, Murray State has an MBA. They have a marketing concentration option. University of Kentucky has not only elective options in marketing, but they also have a master's in marketing that they offer. So we're lacking in that area. This would be a 4-course stackable certificate. In the model that we have, it would have a class in marketing, a class in sales, a class in market research, and then a class in analytics, and would be, I believe, a very desirable degree option for a lot of students. We've taught the sales class as a standalone elective, which doesn't fit into the curriculum, and I think we had 16, 18 students sign up in one semester. So I believe it'll be a very desirable addition to the MBA options that we have.
So as
Questions, comments?
Some of you know, I did my stint as interim MBA director last year as we were rolling out the stackables, which
allows the students to put together 2 different concentrations into their MBA degree and just take one course, which I happen to teach sometimes, at the end of it to pull it all together. And as I was doing that in that advisor role, there was an awful lot of questions from students who were interested in this as one of those stackables that they could put together. And Lucas and I, Dr. Forbes and I talked about this at the time, something that was definitely a hole that would help us be able to reach out to students. So I think this is a good addition to the certificates that we're offering, the stackables that we're offering in the MBA.
Yeah, thanks, Shane. Yeah, the class we taught in sales, just to give you an example of the wide range of students that are taking that class. I mean, in that class we taught, we had a local surgeon taking a class, we had a dentist taking the class, all to, we think of sales as selling, but we got to remember that accountants, doctors, they have to sell their practice to get patients to go to them as opposed to somewhere else. And so we think this overall marketing thing will be a great addition to the program.
Other comments or questions? If not, Shane, I'll take your comments as a motion to approve. Do I hear a second? All right. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Action item 6, Provost Fisher.
Approval of undergraduate certificate in economic data analytics, sorry.
It's me again. As you can see, we've been very busy in the College of Business recently. This one we're really, really excited about because this is another certificate offering at the undergraduate level. And as we're seeing more and more students coming in with a lot of credits, but wanting to still have that 4-year experience or to extend their experience, giving them the ability to focus in on skill sets, to add credentials to their transcript, to add focus areas, to make use of electives that they have available and that sort of thing. The more alternatives we can provide, the better. This one will pair very nicely with the data science program as an option for those students as well. And so I'll turn it to Dr. Lebedinsky to give you the specifics of that certificate.
Yes, thank you. So as some of you might know, before serving in a dean's office, I worked for 20 years in the economics departments, and we've been thinking about creating a certificate of this nature for a long time and never quite got around to doing it. And what the certificate is, it takes all our quantitative classes in the field of economics, and as some of you can also might know, that economics is pretty heavily quantitative science. And it takes all those quantitative courses and packages them into one certificate. And it serves a dual purpose. It's a great addition for our students on its own, but it also dovetails very nicely with the new data science major, because it's going to create more and more options for students to choose from one of those certificates or minors that are required to take as a part of their degree. So again, it kind of follows that very appealing stackable nature of the degrees, at which I think we should be offering more and more, where students have a core set of classes that they have to take, and then they have to choose a couple of specializations which will enhance their marketability. And I think this particular certificate adds so many, based on the history of how our students, what they told us when they got their jobs, it takes really those skills that gets them the jobs and allows them to move up in their fields. And so we take all of those courses and put them together in one degree.
Comments, questions? All right. If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Regent Nichols. And do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the certificate in economic data analytics. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, like sign. Motion passes, and we will move on to action item 7.
Approval of graduate certificate in trauma and resilience.
Yes.
Kim Besta.
So you all may recall that Dr. Mallinger was here just a few months ago talking about the So this is now the graduate certificate. We had faculty come and say this would be a great idea, obviously given the trauma that we've experienced, not just in the last few years, but as mental health issues and emotional issues are more and more prevalent. So we had Hanover Research look at while both were important, the graduate certificate was the one they really said you need to proceed with because that is something that is missing out of the market. So we went ahead and Dr. Sullivan is going to provide the specifics on the certificate. So, thank you.
Thank you, Dean Basta. Hello, everyone. Good morning. Yes, we're really excited to have this new certificate in the MSW program in CHHS. And as Dean Basta was just saying, there is an increased need for professionals in areas including mental health, social work, of course, child welfare, substance abuse, to know more about the effects of trauma on all levels of client systems. And this certificate, graduate certificate, will prepare students to practice in a variety of settings with increased knowledge and how trauma affects functioning of individuals, families, and actually at the societal level also. Participants will learn about the latest research on trauma, the impact of trauma on victims, and how to assess for the effects of trauma and gain skills in trauma-informed care. And it's a 12-hour program, 12-hour certificate. Six credits are required. There are 2 electives in social work, and then 6 other hours of electives in other courses that are interdisciplinary, including social work, counseling, and public health.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions, comments? Certainly timely subjects, to say the least.
Yes.
If there are no further questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Regent Nichols. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the graduate certificate in trauma and resilience. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Action item number 8.
Approval of the undergraduate certificate in food service design. Dean Basta.
Yes, we're very excited about this, and we have Mr. Travis Wilson here, our chair of Applied Human Sciences, who's going to speak on behalf of the certificate. Okay.
This one kind of fell in our lap. The Food Service Consultant Society International last year contacted us because we're one of the few departments in the country, actually in the world, that has interior design or some kind of design element along with hospitality. And the Food Service Consultant Society is the organization that designs all commercial kitchens, from hospitals to actually this university. Our commons up here, I took this group for a tour and I went, oh, we've already been here. So there's all these things. So anything that's from a restaurant on, and it actually ties really well because we are very strong in the employment side, the internship side, and all the factors that get those kids out into the workforce. So this group asked us, hey, what can we create? So we decided, hey, we already have the core group of courses from food service implementation to commercial kitchen design on the books. So we basically just kind of put everything together into one little compact packet. We'll be running the first 12 students through hopefully this fall through that. And then we'll be creating cohorts for the industry people to come here in the summer. So do some intensives over a period of 6 weeks. And we will be the only provider for this industry, which is a multi-billion-dollar industry, education provider in the world. So, and we were kind of selected. So it's a fun and exciting project that, like I said, just fell in our lap. We look forward to working with the industry. And of course, the best part is we have now over 40 requests from manufacturers to come and visit us. So to engage with the students. Very interactive group of people.
Okay, thank you. Questions, comments?
We fixed in 100 jobs listed on LinkedIn searching for food service consultants. That's it, huh?
What now?
Apparently that this is a growing industry.
Oh, it is, yes, yes.
Or one of them there.
Yeah, the industry, one of the major factors is it's been kind of capitalized by one demographic of people, a certain age demographic. And now this group is retiring out and they're like, oh, wait a second, we're sitting here with these massive corporations where there's no one to take our place. And that was one of the major factors. So we know that there is a strong market out there, and it's the design skills that our students have and the understanding of the software and the architectural / interior design portion that the industry needs to move it forward and get away from kind of the traditional old kitchen to this very modern thing that we have basically in the commons if you get to tour up there and see what's going on. So this is a very far reaching job opportunities.
Okay, very good. Any other comments, questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Regent Nichols. Glad you're with us today. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the undergraduate certificate in food services design. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion passes.
Regent Bale, may I make a framing comment?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. So at the outset, I shaped up for you the relationship between the budget model and the work that's happening. For those of you who are newer to the board, I'm going to draw a thread from what was affectionately known as CAPE, our Comprehensive Academic Program Evaluation, to now. Academic innovation in a university today cannot just happen because of additional resources being added to the total. We have to make strategic decisions based upon what the market demands, what students are interested in, which means we have to take scarce resources within the institution and redeploy them to do new things. And so I just want to take a moment to praise our academic deans and our faculty who are thinking differently, who are thinking about how it is they create new programs, but also are making difficult decisions around what do we sunset. And for the faculty who've been engaged in this kind of work, I think that if you ask them, what they would tell you is it's exciting because they get to do new things again. And there's something refreshing about that. Institutions of higher education are really good at pattern maintenance, doing this year what we've done every year before. We can't live in that world anymore. And so again, kudos to all of our academic leadership for doing this. I'm thankful for the work, and it continues, and here's accelerating.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think those observations are spot on, and I think it demonstrates that Western Kentucky University is a living, breathing entity that is not afraid to evolve and meet these new challenges, and that's exactly what we should be doing. So we've had a great agenda this morning, and we're not finished. We do have action item 9 yet to deal with, and then we have an information item. But
yeah, number 9 is approval of sabbatical recommendations. The way it works is that a faculty member has to be here for at least 6 years and be at the assistant professor or above level. They then put in an application that goes through the college sabbatical, goes through their chair, the college sabbatical advisory committee, college dean, and the provost. It all has to be approved. And at that point, we bring it to you for approval. And what you see in front of you is that 16 faculty have been recommended for sabbatical at this time. 14 of them will take 1 semester sabbaticals, 2 will take a full year.
okay. Questions, comments?
It seems like a robust number. Is that in line with what we've done?
I looked back to last year. We did 12 last year, so it's within line. A little few more. I mean, I think it's important for them to have sabbaticals. I think it's where new ideas are formed and new innovation is thought about in them. And from what I've seen, from what has been written and what we've seen from people who have taken them, they are incredibly productive during those periods of time.
I'm not against it at all. I think it's a great thing. And I hope when I come off board, I can tell them for me 5 years ago. I take that back.
But I mean, it's in the bank, right?
Yeah, it's in the bank.
I mean, I just think it's an important thing for everyone.
May I again take your comments as a motion? Regent Spiller?
Right.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Regent Nichols. All right, all those in favor of the sabbatical recommendations, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion is approved. We have a interesting information item on our agenda today, and Provost Fisher, I'll let you introduce our faculty presentation.
Yeah, I mean, one of the hottest topics as we speak in higher education is AI, and how does AI fit into higher education? And universities are trying to figure out how do you use it instead of making it penal to help students learn, and how to use it by faculty to make their courses better, and to combine what the students do and the faculty do to teach them how to use AI as they move into the future, because that's really what's going to happen as we talk about it. And we're I think, at the forefront right now out there trying to do that. And the person who's leading that charge is Marco Demonidicic, and he's here and he wants to show you. So he's going to do some demos for you of what would be AI and how you can work it and how it can work its way, and how you can use it to actually design stuff for courses, and how students can use it to help them in writing in other areas. And tell us, I hope, what else we're doing to get ready for AI.
Yeah, thank you for that introduction. People don't exaggerate when they call AI the fourth technological revolution. And unlike the Industrial Revolution, it's going to not take a century and a half to fully develop. It is here at our doorstep. And so I wanted to really show you the power of AI, particularly OpenAI. I don't know how many of you use ChatGPT or various forms of it, but if you don't, I strongly encourage it, because certainly the young folks are doing it and we don't want them to run laps around us. So what I wanted to show you is one, how it's already incorporated into our LMS Blackboard and the incredible things it can already do. But I will focus on first teaching and course design, and how faculty can, maybe should use it, how students may be already using it, and then how researchers, faculty as researchers, can use it. And I think it hits on a number of themes we already talked about today. I believe Regent Bale talked about data, right? GPT is all about data and crunching data. And then President Caboni mentioned innovation, and this forces us to innovate in very important ways. So without further ado, I have about 7 minutes to talk to you about the fourth technological revolution. So I will get started by just showing you quickly what it can do in Blackboard already. So this is the course that I'm teaching this semester on 20th century Russia. And you can tell I've already put in a few modules. But if I click on the plus sign in Blackboard, you will see that it gives me a prompt to auto-generate modules. So note that the only thing that it really knows is that the name of the course is 20th century Russia. And based on this alone, when I say auto-generate modules, it will take into account the title of the course and then provide me not only with the title of the module, but also eventually associated images, and also say and explain what will happen in the module, right? And this is without me even giving it a specific prompt in the description. Also note that I can adjust the complexity of the modules, right? Depending if I'm teaching freshmen or seniors. And then I can also adjust the number of learning modules, right? And again, this is without me giving it any particular prompts. So not only does it do modules, but if I go into one of the modules and I ask it to create an assignment, here I will just add a text, explain the causes of the Russian Revolution. If I go to the grading scale, something that takes up a lot of time for faculty is using grading rubrics. If I click on generate a grading rubric, again, all I gave it was a simple prompt, right? Again, I can adjust on the complexity and the number of columns and rows. It auto-generates a rubric for students and for the faculty members in a matter of seconds. So
Marco, do we have a sense of how many folks are actually using this? I mean, so I remember, some of you may remember in March of 2020, as we prepared to go virtual for a couple of months, we looked at the number of faculty who had not ever looked at Blackboard, and the number was startlingly high, just in terms of my impression. We have a sense of how many folks are using this, and how are you kind of urging adoption or getting them to think differently about course building?
Well, I'll say we made an excellent decision. This is Blackboard Ultra. So this is the latest version of Blackboard. And 2 years ago, we started the migration. And at this point, approximately 65% of the faculty have migrated to Blackboard Ultra. And the migration will be complete in spring of 2025. And Blackboard only started incorporating AI in this month. So we're at the very beginning, and Blackboard is actually coming to campus at the beginning of February. And this is where the big unveiling will happen in terms of AI capacities within Blackboard. So at that point, we will start aggressively educating faculty on these capabilities.
Yeah, just to say how rapidly this is changing. I've been using AI in course design and other things for basically a year, and I haven't seen this. So
it's crazy.
And so I will say, from a faculty perspective, there's a lot of cognitive overload if we're thinking about the past 5 years, right? From the pandemic to migration to Blackboard Ultra, and now Blackboard Ultra having AI capabilities. So again, in terms of thinking about adoption, it's advancing very rapidly. So this is, in addition to this, when there's a reading associated with the reading associated with an assignment, we're getting to the point where Blackboard will be able to generate questions associated with a particular reading. And you'll be able to select what type of question, the complexity of the question, et cetera. So Blackboard already has the ability to generate questions, generate rubrics, and generate modules, right? So this will continue. And I think they're expecting in the next year or so for AI to be able to batch evaluate assignments. And I'll demonstrate that in GPT. So this is what Blackboard can do already. Those of you who've used ChatGPT are probably familiar with this interface. I'm subscribed to ChatGPT 4, which is a paid subscription. And when you have a paid subscription, which is about $20 a month, it gives you access to various GPTs that are specialized. So GPT stands for Generative pre-trained transformer. And as you can tell, these GPTs are specialized for particular functions, right? So I've used Consensus, which is a research assistant, right? Canva, most of you are familiar with. It can really design anything from presentations to logos. There's DALL-E, which is an image generator. So whatever function that you can possibly think of, GPTs have been created for that particular function. And I'm just going to show off some of them, particularly as it relates to teaching. In this particular one, this grading assistant, all I did was I gave it a rubric that Blackboard generated. And I told it, I teach upper class students in a college class. The writing prompt was X. And just based on that, the grading assistant, right, told me, is this the rubric? I gave it a student artifact. And then not only did it assign points, right, but it also explained why those points were allotted to that particular student based on the assignment that I entered. And so I entered two. I entered one that I scored at a 4 previous semester, and ChatGPT also gave it a 4. And then I gave it a student artifact that I had graded at a 1.5 out of 4. And it was a little bit more generous than I was, and I gave it 2 points. But I wanted to evaluate whether quality control was up to snuff, right? And so I was not only impressed that it assigned points, but it also took the rubric and it took the assignment and matched them together, which is, I don't know about you, but it's pretty mind-boggling to me.
Yes.
What it can also do is create a PowerPoint presentation, right? First, I gave it a prompt, create a PowerPoint on the impact of AI on higher education. It gave me a PowerPoint, but it was a little too general. So I gave it a second prompt, and I said, include specific examples for the impact of AI on higher education, especially as universities are currently responding. And it came up with a 14-slide deck. I went through the examples that it provided, and it did not hallucinate, right? Sometimes it makes mistakes. It just, it wants to please, right? GPTs are big pleasers and they can't say no. So it created a 14-slide deck specifically on what I asked it to do, right?
Marco, can I ask another question? I'm sorry to
Yes.
keep interrupting.
No, please.
So I've done this before, and give me your sense of when you ask it for particular source material for a syllabus or for a course, how well does it align with what you would have selected as a faculty member? Because I look at some of the things that it recommends and like, yeah, I wouldn't pick that, and this is why. It's not there yet. It's close, getting closer every month, but.
Yeah, I think of it as a partner, right? It doesn't substitute for the things that I would do. But I will show you, I'll skip ahead just a little bit, and I'll show you something. This is a specialized GPT that's specialized. It's called Litmaps, and it specializes in finding literature gaps. And something that I could never do, and I would have to depend on at least 10 other faculty members to fill in the gaps. Essentially, the way it works is that I gave it a citation of an article that is sort of defining for scholarship on genocide in Bosnia. And so what it does is it provides all the interconnections of that article to other articles. Right? So talking about data, it can turbocharge research, right? By saving time in terms of researching all the other databases. So what it does is establishes connections between different parts of the research.
It's by citation pattern?
Pardon?
By citation patterns?
Yeah, so you can of course change by cited by or references or relevance. So if we're looking for content similarity for this particular article, it can also provide that perspective, right? So if we're starting with this article, it provides a sense of how similar the other articles are to this one. So it saved me hours and hours of database research and reading. So again, and I'm sure that's even more valuable for folks in the sciences.
My question is kind of along the same lines. I'm sure several of you may be familiar with the article where an attorney wrote a brief and used AI to write the brief. And when he cited a proposition in the brief, artificial intelligence would look for a legal proposition, a case to support that. And when it couldn't find it, it just created a case along with a citation as well. And of course, he didn't check it out, and he filed it in court. And, you can imagine what happened after they started looking for the cases, and there was no case there, and the citation was wrong at all. But so what that brings me to think is, don't you have to go back and physically check everything that it discovers for you? Because it has the capacity to create something that does not exist.
It does, yeah. To the point that GPTs are pleasers. It certainly does that often. But I think with more and more specialized GPTs, those errors are less likely to happen. And I think it underscores the need for AI literacy, for our students. And in my course, I asked my students that if they complete an assignment that is augmented by AI, right, that they write about how they used AI and to the extent to which this work is theirs. Because I'll give you an example. I wrote a short essay and I submitted it to AI to provide me with feedback, right, and to shorten it. And so it's always a question of whose work is it then, right? In the end, right? If we use AI as a partner or something as AI augmented. And recently, when I submitted the journal, I had to check a box if I used AI for any part of the article writing process, and then an explanation as to how I used AI. So I think it will hallucinate less and less. But I think it also underscores the importance of AI literacy, both for us and for our students.
Thank
you. So in addition to PowerPoints, it can also summarize videos, right? It's not limited to text. There's a particular GPT that summarizes videos because I use documentaries in my courses. Not only can it summarize videos for students, but I've also asked it to write 5 questions for me, guiding questions based on the video. So I think it's pretty impressive that it can take 15 minutes of a documentary, summarize it in an accurate way, and then provide 5 questions that are relevant to the content of the video. And again, I'm using, a documentary on Putin so I can double check that the AI is not hallucinating. And then finally, it can also create videos, right? All I said was, let's see, create a video on Stalinism that is educational in style. It should include key facts on the Gulag, collectivization, Stalin's leadership in World War II, and his death. And let's see, hopefully you can hear the sound. It is not the best, but again, I think it's the beginning of what it'll be able to do.
In history. Let's dive in. The Gulag, a system of forced labor camps, silenced dissent, and claimed countless lives. Collectivization, an attempt to reshape agriculture, led to famine and suffering. During World War II, Stalin's leadership played a crucial role in defeating the Nazis. but his death marked the end of an era. Stalin's policies and actions had far-reaching historical, political, and social implications. Understanding Stalinism helps us grasp the complexities of the past. Stay curious, keep learning.
Anyway, so obviously I didn't write any of it. I'm not sure why it chose such an upbeat music for a video on Stalin, but its capabilities are pretty tremendous. Something that I'm most excited about is virtual teaching assistants. So my course is History 438, and what it can do is I create my own GPT, right, for my own class, and I input all the materials for that class into the GPT. So I put in my syllabus, I put in my reading materials, and so once I input my syllabus, I simply asked from a perspective of a student, what assignment should I put the most effort in to guarantee a B in this class? And something that impressed me the most about its response is that it noted that the final exam is not mandatory, provided they do well in the previous other assignments. And so it could give students appropriate advice in terms of where they should emphasize their efforts in order to earn a B in the class, right? And I think it's often a question that they might hesitate to ask me, but in creating a chat bot, essentially, I think it creates opportunities for students to ask questions at 2 a.m. when they're most likely to ask those questions, right? And get an immediate response from the chat bot. And also free up faculty to interact with students in other, perhaps more meaningful ways. So I'm imagining that we'll see a lot more virtual TAs in the future with the help of AI. In terms of how students may be using it already, what I thought was interesting, I gave it a prompt to write an essay on why the Bolsheviks won the Civil War. But then I said, write it as a junior college student and include 3 factual errors, as well as 3 punctuation errors. So the essay reads like a first draft to avoid AI detection, right? So I think often we think of students simply inputting the prompt, but AI will do whatever we tell it to do. And so it wrote the essay, and I asked, what errors did you include in the essay, right? And so it gave me the 3 errors that it included, and also identified the punctuation errors that it devised for the essay. So I think it's pretty clever what it can do. Also, I did a test on it reading a PDF and answering a question based on the PDF. So I included the reading and then asked it to answer the question on how a peasant would feel about living in the Russian Empire at the end of Nicholas II's reign. And it provided the answer based on the PDF, right? So it already has the capability of scanning and analyzing PDFs. And then finally, because I felt like I was too humanities focused, I included a math problem to make it a little bit more balanced. And for this, I wanted to emphasize that it could act as a tutor, right? Because it not only solves the problem, but it also explains what the key concepts and related knowledge is. And then I asked it, explain it like I'm a middle schooler, right? So then it provided a different perspective, right? So when we're talking about tutoring, right, often the benefit of tutoring is having somebody who can explain something in multiple ways. And AI is very capable in being able to do that, right? I think sometimes students hesitate to ask questions, and I think AI can act as an excellent tutor because it will tutor without students feeling like they're being judged, that they have to ask, like, please explain it to me like I'm a middle schooler or a 5th grader. And then finally, just very quickly, in terms of the research, right, I asked for it to write a lit review paper on the Bosnian genocide. It still doesn't do a great job, but what I was impressed with, knowing what I know about the literature on Bosnian genocide, is that it identifies key themes, and that the authors that it cited are all legitimate leading scholars in the field, and that it's able to identify their key themes. Of course, it has limitations. When I asked it, provide me with 3 most cited survivor testimonies of the Bosnian genocide, it could not yield specific results, right? So there's still limitations, but I think with more specialized GPTs, it will be able to do so quickly. And then I asked it to write an introduction to a paper on Soviet masculinity after Stalin's death. And it provided an adequate response, right? So I don't think it's yet at a scholarly level, but it is quickly catching up. And what I wanted to end with is, the future being here. Just today or yesterday, it was announced that Arizona State will collaborate directly with OpenAI. And there has been a conversation about ASU inviting submissions from faculty and staff to implement the uses of ChatGPT Enterprise into everything they do, right? And so the 3 areas are going to be enhancing student success, forging new avenues for innovative research, and streamlining organizational processes, right? So AI is not just going to be important for teaching and learning, but all operations at a university. And then finally, University of Florida is also doing interesting things, and they're calling it AI across the curriculum, opportunities for all students. The thrust of it really is that AI has been generally situated within business or engineering colleges, and they are currently developing or implementing certificates on fundamentals of AI, ethics, data and technology, and then courses within the major, so that you see some of the offerings: AI in agriculture and life sciences, AI in social science, AI in the built environment, and AI in media and society, and more, right? So that they're trying to develop as many certificates on AI as it relates to particular fields, given that businesses are going to be expecting students to be literate when it comes to AI usage. And the final example I have for this is that the AI Foundation curriculum is beginning to offer 4 courses in high schools, right? So this is already beginning at a high school level, and University of Florida is teaching high school students how to use AI. So again, I'll end when I started and say that the 4th technological revolution is already here and in high gear.
Okay, quite a presentation, Marco. Thank you. Comments, questions?
I've worried about this quite a bit in terms of an existential crisis for higher education as we try to find our place in this. What's the value added that we have, and what are students doing? And as I listened to the CEO of Coke the other day, and he said, "Well, are you using AI to develop new flavors?" And he said, "No, that's not much, but all the marketing stuff now is AI." Then he talked about feeding all of their data on supply chain into it and just optimizing the supply chain very quickly with AI. Just so many different applications that we've not considered. As I talk to faculty on campus, I've heard things from outright banning to using it in their courses. And I think what we're struggling with is there's a wide variety of courses, there's a wide variety of level of student. Marco said so many times, he was able to judge what it did, and we have to get to our students to a certain level of expertise in the area to see if it's hallucinating or not, to be able to see, did it give us a good answer? And a human anatomy course, if they're using AI in that, they're not learning the concepts they need to know. And that's where I try to get students to know. I teach a terms course. You've got to know these terms. And then I teach a senior level strategic management course. I want you to use AI. But how do we in higher education get people to understand the basics of the discipline before they start to use this so much to supplement their work? And it's so new, it's so fast. It's a great tool. Certainly struggling with how to roll that out in ways that's going to help our students as much as they're going to need it in the future.
Well, I think Marco and his group, and he has a group of faculty together that are working on that question, I think, and trying to figure out. I mean, the worst thing we could do is say we're never going to use it on this campus. That makes no sense whatsoever as we move forward. So what we have to do is ultimately figure exactly what you said. How do you do this in a way that makes sense so that we're teaching literacy, but we're also teaching them when you use it, when you don't use it, and how it all works. And I think the way to do that is it's just going to take some time, right? And you're going to have to put some bumpers on it, some policies on it, and all kinds of things like that we're not at yet. But it's a discussion that's going on across this campus to try to do that at this point. It's just like the government trying to figure out how to control it, right? Everybody's trying to figure out how to put those, I don't know, values or whatever you want to call it on it at this point.
I will say the research on attitude towards AI shows that folks who actively engage with AI tools are much, I guess, I'm more optimistic about the future of AI than folks who don't, right? So I think the first hurdle to cross is getting not just faculty, but all of us, right? When I first started, I was overwhelmed, right? Because I was like, I have to reorganize my entire class, right? Because so much of it is not AI proof, right? But to me, that was exciting, right? Because I can do other things and I was not limited to essays, right? I mean, honestly, I think probably the age of the essay is gone, right? We need to move on to different kinds of assessments because AI has supplanted the essay. I mean, I think it's similar to the calculator and GPS. I would be terrified if I didn't have my GPS. Like I would not move. I wouldn't leave my house because I don't know which way to turn, right? So technology has certainly sort of, made difficulties in us becoming independent. But I think we need to figure out how to use these tools because I think 75% of job ads now include, right? You have Excel, Word, and then AI, right? These are just going to be the fundamentals of somebody entering the workforce.
Thank you so much. Great presentation. Very informative. We appreciate it.
Appreciate the time and questions.
Yeah, I feel a little like Shane did with the existential crisis business, and for anyone that's seen the film Oppenheimer, I kind of feel like the end of that, and how Einstein and Oppenheimer and the others felt. What have we created here? How are we going to use it? For that matter, the CRISPR therapy and gene editing. The dilemmas, moral and ethically, that we have there. There's some parallels, I think, as well with this. But it is here. It is transformative, and I'm glad we got people like you on campus trying to figure out how to use it. And I hope to goodness that all writing, including essays, doesn't become a thing of the past. But very provocative, and certainly a topic we'll need to come back to periodically at our meetings so that you can keep us up on what is going on. So
we'll continue working hard.
Yeah. Anyone else have comments or questions? Anybody else feeling afraid like me right now? No. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Provost Fisher, you have any last remarks?
I guess the last remarks I have of information is that we have 2 searches for deans going on campus as we speak. Both of them are on schedule. Both of them are at the process of identifying a group of 10 to 12, 15 people to interview on Zoom. So that's where we are.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
If there are no other items, Mr. Chairman, that concludes the business of the Academic Affairs Committee.
Very good. Thank you, Regent Vale. Let's take a 5-minute recess.
Just because I'm.
So I think it's.
Yeah.
It's all universities and it just went straight.
Waiting for one more. Person.
Right. At least he's learning that now.
Yeah, exactly.
Way a lot of people.
All right, the next item on the agenda is finance and budget committee. Regent Brody.
Thank you, Chairman Milliken. Without objection, I'm going to go out of order. We've got a Forbes audit partner on the clock, and we need to get her moving. So the request is for the acceptance of the auditor's report on the financial statements of WKYU TV and WKYU FM radio for the year ended June 30th, 2023. Susan, any further information?
Yeah, I'll just say a few introductory comments and then I'll turn it over to Jennifer Williams, our partner from Forbes. So first off, it was a clean audit, no findings, which is excellent news. I want to thank David and his staff, and particularly Emily England, does a wonderful job every year, very helpful. And then I will turn it over to Jennifer Williams, who is our partner with Forbes. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you, board, for making it being flexible with the travel from Louisville to Bowling Green might not have been as easy this morning. So I appreciate the opportunity to still be here with you today to go over the annual results for the TV and radio financial statements. As Susan mentioned, we did have a very successful year with the audit. David and Emily and the team there are very helpful. And so I just have a few highlights to go over for the audit results, the financial statement highlights, and then the Board of Regents letter as well. So as Susan mentioned, we accomplished the audit plan and timeline. We had great assistance from the team, as we noted there, and we did issue what we call an unmodified or clean opinion on the financial statements. And so those are noted in the packet. We also did not have any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in internal controls over the financial reporting or compliance noted. We also were able to submit the information to the CPB within the time frame. So Emily and David helped take care of that process for us as well. So we stayed on track with timing with that process, even over the holidays. So a few financial highlights here. The first is just a snippet of the radio's financials. So you'll see the condensed statements of net position here noted. We did get back to a comparative set of statements with the financial statements, as there were no new standards that needed to be adopted on the TV and radio's financial statements. So you'll see that the radio's net position decreased approximately $196,000. This was primarily driven by the amount that is the grants from the CPB, as well as the investment income. So the CPB has a calculation that they prepare, and so that is determined based on that calculation and the grants that the radio will receive. There was also additional funding from the CARES Act. So as we know, that funding has decreased as we go forward in this environment. And then, as you all know too, the market did show decreases. And so the decrease was about a $400,000 swing compared to the prior year. So those were the two primary items that were impacting the radio's financial statements in the current year. So next on TV, again, here is a condensed statement of net position. So on TV, the net position increased approximately $601,000. The grants from CPB this year were about $708,000. And then equivalent, there was the decrease in the investment income. That was only about 90,000 noted in the TV's net position there. Any questions on the financial statements that you had seen in your packet or anything on TV or radio? Okay. High level, the Board of Regents letter that we are required, this is our required communication to you all today. So as I noted, we did issue unmodified opinions on both sets of the financial statements. We did not have any significant accounting policies or changes in or unusual accounting policies. Those accounting policies are noted in note 1 of the financial statement footnotes. There were also no alternative accounting treatments to note to you today in the financial statements. The next slide shows management's judgments and accounting estimates. And so these are just estimates that are inherent in the financial statements. For TV and radio, the only estimates that we have noted here is just the defined benefit pension plan and post-employment benefit assumptions. These are tested at the university level and then are allocated over to TV and radio. So no significant items there from an estimation, if you will. Those are performed by the actuary. Then again, no matters to report in the financial statement disclosures. In regards to audit adjustments, we did have a couple of audit adjustments related to radio and one on TV. These were small items for radio on accounts payable and some revenue recognition. Those were recorded in the financial statements by management. And the item on the fixed asset disposals, that was a net zero impact. That was due to items being damaged, I believe, by the tornado, and those were fully depreciated assets. So that was just taking off the gross asset and the accumulated depreciation. We did have one pass adjustment for radio on revenue recognition. This was what we call passed or waived, so as to not change the prior year report. And this was about 26,000. And so this was just a timing difference of if it should be reported in fiscal year 22 or fiscal year 23. And it should have been recorded in 22, and it's reflected in the 23 financial statements. So at the end of the year, at fiscal year 23, the net position is corrected. It's just a timing of what I say, what column is it recorded in. So those were just 2 items that we had noted during this year's audit process. Then on the next slide, the final comments on the letter, there were no matters to report on any of the quality of the radio and TV's accounting policies. And the only other communication that we have is the management representation letter. So as we complete the audit process, management signs that representation letter for us, and that concludes the audit process. Any questions on those items to note or the financial statements?
Mr. Brinkley, do you have any comments?
I have a quick comment related to the interaction with Forbes. I really cannot stress enough how different this approach is. And that's not to say it's a bad thing to change. I agree with Susan's assessment that every few years you need to do an update. There is a note in there that many of you noticed, the $26,000. I would argue that had Forbes been our accountant in FY22, that would not have happened. We have made internal corrections related to that. And again, it was a timing issue. But this is really about attention to detail. And I can tell you that the calls that I've been on related to them, the amount of work that they put in on these audits, and as one of, the university has an audit, athletics has an audit, we have an audit. I think it's an outstanding group. I have learned things every year. So the second year that we've used them, we have learned and adapted our processes and changed our policies. And for us to do that, having had clean audits for multiple years in a row, just shows a growth in the pattern of accountability, and we appreciate that. So I cannot say enough about this team. They are outstanding to work with, and they are extremely thorough, and we appreciate that because we want that level of accountability.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments?
So David, who has had multiple clean audits in a row, public media reports to me ultimately as president. And I want to echo what David has said. An audit is not supposed to be a gotcha game. And Forbes acts as good partners for us. It's an educational process and also helps make sure that we're doing everything in our power to be accurate. And so I'm thankful for that relationship as well. You feel it. We certainly feel it on the university side. I'm glad David feels it there. So to David, learning and understanding the timing issue, I think that's good growth. That's why you have audit. It's not gotcha. It's, hey, we see this. How can we get better? And how can we not do this in the future?
Thank you, Dr. Caboni and David. I really appreciate those comments because we do want to be a partner with you, and it is never meant to be a gotcha. Again, we're all human. We all make mistakes, and sometimes you look at information and something can get recorded one way or another. And sometimes you don't see it 1 year. You know, auditing is not looking at the entire population, and so we make samples. And so sometimes you see the information and sometimes you don't. So we wanted to work with you to always help you with those controls and policies because you are a great partner to work with, and you all work very hard to get these financial statements accurate.
Thank you. No further questions. I'd entertain a motion to accept the separate auditors' reports and WKYU TV and for the WKYU FM radio for the year ended June 30th, 2023.
So moved.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Voted abstention for me. Thank you. Now we'll go back to action item 1 in finance and budget, and the request is except for filing of statements of revenues and expenditures for the 6 months ended December 31st, 2023 and 2022.
Okay, so again, our second quarter statement of revenue and expenditures. So I'd like to go through the overall revenue and then break it down by category, same on expenditures. So if you look at total revenue for fiscal year 24, at this point in time, we're at about 66% of budget as compared to 65% in the prior year. So very close. Trending slightly better, about 3.4 million or 1.6%. If you go on to the individual categories of revenue, if you look at net tuition revenue, our fall tuition revenue exceeded budget for a couple of reasons. First off, the good increase we had in our freshman class and just overall enrollment. So 93% of budget as compared to 89% in the prior year. Spring tuition revenue is excellent. To date, it exceeds budget primarily because of all the efforts across campus on retention efforts. The other various categories of revenue. State appropriation, as we've talked about this before, is trending lower, directly related to our decline in performance funding. And again, I think it's fair to say that, and we've talked about this, that this is a hard game to be in when you're competing with all the institutions, primarily UK. UK is just going to, it's difficult when it's a volume-based model. It's hard to compete with a school the size of UK. So we are appreciative of the money that the legislators put into performance funding, but it's just difficult for us to compete with an institution the size of UK. Grants and contracts. Now, just keep in mind what you see on the revenue side. You'll see a same change on the expense side. So the increase is primarily due to the increase in Pell and the College Access Program grants, and also the new innovative scholarship pilot program for our refugee students. Other revenue is higher, number one, because of our investment policy that we put in place last year. We were able to budget some additional revenue. As insurance claims are a little behind, we received a tornado claim reimbursement. Timing of our Pro Card rebate, that was booked in second quarter this year, where last year was in the third quarter. And then some increase in the TIF revenue that was specifically associated with the CDS when that was adjacent to campus. So that's also a timing issue. That was about, TIF is about 2 years in arrears. So sales and service is trending slightly lower, primarily because of timing issues. A couple of athletic items, one being the Conference USA distribution, and then some football guarantees. And also the conclusion of the Advantage Kentucky Alliance program, which is a program that's managed. It's a partnership with industry and somewhat of an internship mentorship program. We have concluded that program. They've moved on to another institution now, which is the University of Louisville. Okay, so moving on to expenses. So fiscal year 24, our expenses are about 54% of budget as compared to 52% in the prior year. That's about a $6.3 million increase or 3.7 more than the prior year. So looking at the various categories of expenditures, first being personnel, higher than the prior year. First off, because of the 2% university-wide salary increase. And then secondly, there were some additional personnel hires across campus and some additional salary adjustments. And when you look at the various categories of direct expenses, again, as I talked about on the revenue side, the other financial assistance is up primarily due to the Pell and the CAP program, and also the innovative scholarship program for our refugee students. S&E is up about $550,000. I think most of that is directly attributable to inflationary increases across campus. Our increase in maintenance of about $820,000 is due to a couple of things: fixed cost increases and also contractual increases associated with inflation. The good news on this is utilities and travel are trending lower, about $745,000. So I have a summary slide here to kind of bring it all together. So total revenues up about 3.38 billion. Our expenses are up more than that, about 6.34 million. So our expenses are exceeding revenue by about 3 million, 6 months into the year. Again, I'm not going to replicate what I've already said around the increase in operating and personnel. But I know there's a lot of talk around campus. We met with the Faculty Senate Finance Committee yesterday and talked a little about this. This is why we're doing what we're doing now, as far as monthly monitoring. And I mean, the month doesn't even go, or we're already on it, looking at what's going on from month to month. The president has also now scheduled bi-weekly meetings with himself, the provost, me, the deans and vice presidents to analyze that data by unit. And we've also started scheduling weekly meetings with our budget managers across campus, because we don't want to find ourselves where we were last year at the end of the year, because I think we know we ended last year at about $11 million deficit. So right now, 6 months in, we're about 3 million expense over revenue. So we are, I would say we're about as on top of it as you can be. And we're meeting and taking this very seriously, and everything we can do to get our expenses under control.
If I could jump in. This is again part of our maturation process as a university. The meetings with budget analysts is to grow their capacity. This is a human capital issue for us. We have some folks in roles that need to understand their roles better. And so Susan meeting with them on a weekly basis, along with Ronaldo and Brian, really will help grow those folks in their capacities. I think those are crucial advisors to deans and other unit heads. Number two, I'm thankful for the work that all of our unit heads are doing, being self-critical of their expenses and trying to stay under budget and working to identify other resources that can help support their operating expenses. And so we've done that well. Last thing is knowing this in November, December, and having the ability to course correct is what you want to do as an organization, instead of waiting till the end of the year when there's no option left. And so I know that folks worry when they hear us talk about finances. The reality is this is what mature institutions do. That if you think about a $350 million budget, that's about a 1% right there at $3 million. And so we have the ability in the next 6 months to get to good. And given the time, effort, and energy that leadership is spending on this, I'm optimistic that we will land that plane.
I would say I appreciate, first off, the time that Susan and her staff gave David and myself yesterday, which was an hour and 20 minutes or so. And also that her and Ronald came to speak to the faculty Senate Budget and Finance Committee. There is a culture change that under RAMP that is taking a while for everyone to understand. And it's a culture change based upon obviously our systems. As we hear things, you know, the unit heads now have much more delegated responsibility about their budgets. And I know David and myself both get hit by people who say, well, there's a hiring freeze on campus. I'm like, well, no, but there might be in your area based upon your own particular budget constraints based upon what you're doing. And so helping people understand, and again, through education, that this delegation of what we've done now does mean that there might be tight financial controls in one area, but it's not a total university thing sometimes, because some areas might actually be doing very well. And most of what I'm hearing when you talk about the concerns and these things is, well, whole universities have, no, not necessarily. And so again, it's a maturation, as you say, and it does seem to me like these budget managers are crucially important in both their education and their work with the deans and the division heads, and understanding what our university policies are as well. So,
and to build upon that point, you know, in these biweekly meetings, it's not Susan telling deans what they need to do, and along with the provost, it's really around us saying, how are you going to address this? This is not mine to fix or mine to address. How are you doing this? And so and each one have different options based upon their revenue mixes, their enrollment growth, and decisions that they made around spending in the first 6 months of the year. That's what RCM is supposed to do, right? And sometimes you will hear different things in different colleges or units because leadership made different choices in those areas, and they have to have the flexibility to do that, to address their own business model. You know, I will call out in particular Amanda, who had made all the changes in previous years so that she didn't have to make any changes. She's fine. There are other units that are in good shape as well. There are some that have some tweaks to make, and the tweaks may be larger in some colleges, some units than others. But to a T, all of them are addressing it and have their own individual strategies. Again, I'll go back to reorganizations and how we've thought differently about how we do work. I want to empower people to think about how they manage their academic unit as their unit, not the president, not the EVP, not the provost, but deans and VPs really taking that ownership. And if I'm a dean, how am I driving that into my organization so my department chairs also understand their roles in managing departmental budgets? We're not there yet, right? But we're getting there, and budget managers are just crucial in doing that.
One other thing I'd say, and just I struggle as I look through this and we've talked about it, is some things we know are coming. We know there's contractual increases as part of these contracts, and we know that we've approved personnel increases, and yet then we see it and it looks like we've overspent, and yet we didn't do that. So understanding when that's built into the budget and when it's not, and what things, you know, surprise us versus most of these things are not surprises. Again, I don't fully understand it. Most of those things we knew were coming. So they're not overspends. We approved them as a board at some point. So,
and I asked the same question, but very directly around, if you're going to hire additional personnel and you have this much money in your budget and you either overspent on personnel or you made additions that now you have to pay for, That's part of managing your budget as a dean or as a VP and knowing day to day where you are. And again, that's different work than what we've done historically at this university. And, makes for difficult conversations when the president walks in the room and asks you that question. But at the same time, the way in which I think folks have responded and the growth that I'm seeing is a very positive thing. So I agree, having foresight to know how we're going to pay for things that are contractual. I mean, I will say publicly, the Sodexo contract that was signed, whenever that was signed, is problematic because of the escalator that's in there. I don't see that long-term being sustainable. We have to figure out how it is we manage that cost escalator. And to Brian Russell's credit and some of the changes they made, he did a great job of getting some of that down, but others is contractually, we got to get to the end of that contract at some point and think about how do we renegotiate it, because it's eating us alive.
And I'm sorry, as I talked to you and David yesterday, so I have plans to, and not just plans, but doing two committees, one to look at these big contracts like Sodexo, and to bring in faculty and staff and deans and vice presidents to help us look at that, decide where we want to go. Also, another committee to look at software contractual obligations we have, because a lot of times we purchase software, it just gets shelved, but we continue to have to pay the annual maintenance on it, and the maintenance is just incredibly expensive now. So
2 points I'll make on all the comments, and I really can't stress enough. I'm with Shane. I appreciate all the time. First comment, I would like to make sure that the university as a whole doesn't continue to see what appears to be punitive damages because of consistent overspends in multi-year patterns by certain areas. I mean, we knew this was coming from the prior year, and we're in the same place with the same areas primarily. Second, it doesn't jive with me that we would ever purchase anything and put it on the shelf. And I struggle with that because I know the areas that I'm very familiar with on this campus and have been for decades, we are very careful with our spending. And when we look at the way that deans have evolved in managing budgets, personally, I feel like the majority of us are suffering because of a few bad actors. And I would like to see some actual repercussions other than the ability to continue to spend at a reckless level and just say, oh, well, we're just not going to hire 24 full-time positions in an area, and we're going to let that money accumulate. And then we're going to change the way we approach. I'm trying not to get too specific, but I know that this is being, I know that you're approaching this. I appreciate the attention to it, but I don't think it's fair that all of campus suffer because there's a few areas that continue to spend $4, $5, and $6 and $7 million, not necessarily over what we didn't know was coming, but without any real consequences.
So David, I'll address it this way. I do think that the units, the overspend is different this year than last year. There are some units that they're above where they should be, and there are some that are in the same place they were. But what we're learning as we go through and live in the new budget model is you got to get your revenue estimates correct. If you don't get your revenue estimates right, particularly for units that are able to generate additional revenue, you're going to look way out of whack. And so making sure that we plan and adjust based upon outside revenues, additional revenue streams that can pull those back into balance is important, because what looks like an overspend actually may not be, because you have additional revenue that's not reported in the revenue line. That's one. Number two, I do think the overspend in some of the new areas are really around expertise in budget managers, and having them have the ability not just to process stuff, but to be strategic partners with unit leaders. Got to get there, because this requires decentralized budgeting requires all of those units to be on budget. And we said at the beginning of this year, there are some units that if they wind up in a place that they're overspent, not everybody else is going to pay for that. They're going to pay for that, and they're going to backfill. And so the penalty and the accountability will be there. Last year we all did this together. This year, if you screw up, it's on you, right?
Right, but if you have an area that serves all of campus that consistently overspends, all of campus suffers when we do a punitive, reduction with them instead of maybe look at the way it's managed.
I agree.
And I think that there are measures to take care of that. But as someone, again, my financial record stands in our area, we see nothing but punitive when we're asked to reduce, when we've been a good actor and a good player in the system and have tried to be adamantly cautious with every dollar that we spend. And that's where it concerns me, because I see deans that are consciously making the effort to really address this. But then we hear, and again, I've addressed this with Susan, I don't think what we hear most of the time is true. Some of it's true, some of it's false, some of it is just made up, because it's that of the day. But when we look at the numbers, I can't say enough how much I think that, along with making sure that we curtail the areas that are overspending, whether it's 10% or 32.7 or whatever in the indexes, we should also look at rewarding the areas, not necessarily financially, but maybe just let them off the hook for a year when they are good actors. And that includes academic areas that have shown and planned, and even philanthropy that have shown and planned adequately and evolved in the way that we've talked about for 5 years now.
And I think that the reason for the 92% goal for spend is exactly about that. Units who get to that place at the end of the year are going to be in a very different position financially, right? And that's part of what this year is about. We talked about being disciplined. We talked about not having a budget problem. We have a spending problem. And so how do you curtail spend? How do you get better at managing through that? How do you continue to educate the whole university, but also within units? And then the last is, I completely agree with you, because RCM is supposed to reward. And you remember, this is only year 2 of RCM. We learned a lot in year 1. And we really have take what we learned and applied it this year. So I think we're saying the same things. We just got to get there.
Yeah, and also I do want to add, I truly appreciate Susan and her team working with the financial managers. We've gotten great information coming back, things that, anytime that we can learn anything, especially with the seasoned staff in our finance area that we have, I think that's a plus, and it's certainly worth the time.
Any other?
The contract you were talking about, the Sabbatical contract, can you explain what that is?
That's the contract within facilities where they do the primarily the custodial work and the landscaping. Is that all, Brian? Landscaping and
it's the grounds, it's the custodial, but it's also the management.
And that expires when? When will that be renegotiated?
We have some off ramps that we can take advantage of.
We have a way to give most of our contracts are written in such a way that we have an out clause, 30 days notice. So. Of course, we would have to have a plan in place to do all that work before we could stop a contract. So, which is a little more complicated than it sounds. So.
Okay, any other questions?
Susan, I have a question for you. When you're talking about the software, some software that's not being used, but you're still paying maintenance fees on it. Are those type of contracts, are you tied up for a certain amount of years on paying the maintenance fees, or can you terminate?
I'm sure, Jan, those are probably just like other contracts are set up so that we can terminate them. And when I say sitting on the shelf, that's more of that's a technical term. They may not actually be sitting on a shelf. It may be up and up, but is anybody really utilizing the software? So what most universities do is after every so many years, you do an inventory of all of your software and you start looking at who's using what and decide, do we need to keep this or do we need to get rid of this? So.
All right, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion to accept the filing of the statement of revenues and expenditures for the 6 months ended December 31st, 2023 and 2022.
So moved.
Thank you, Jan. Second. Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. The last action item we have is the approval of faculty and staff personnel actions, which have been approved through administrative channels and executed through human resources information system during the period 9/1/23 to 12/31/23. And I want to give a little background here. The Finance Committee requested that the university restructure and streamline the personnel report so the board can engage in a more focused review of the university's proposed compensation commitments in accordance with statute. The personnel report has been updated to accommodate this request, and moving forward, the board will review and approve new appointments, promotions, market equity adjustments, and reclassifications that result in increased compensation on a biannual basis. Faculty and staff one-time payments will be presented to the board on an annual basis. Actions are identified by type and funding source and excludes those actions specifically delegated to the president. Susan?
So, thank you, Chair Brody. So, as you said, the report has been restructured. We've worked with Andrea Anderson. The report remains compliant with state statute, and the cadence of the report, again, personnel actions will be brought to the board on a biannual basis, one-time payments on an annual basis. So the personnel actions in front of you today are from September 1 through December 31.
Questions, comments? I would like to say before we go any further, I would like to thank Legal, Andrew Anderson. I'd like to thank HR, Andrew Sherrill, and I'd like to thank Susan and her department. This was a great thing, I think, for the future. It will provide more clarity as we go along.
Along with your comment, if I can just add one.
Absolutely.
I think that it helps us focus on areas that are more important and not sit in an individual table of judgment sometimes names. I think that we need to be focused overall as an institution on are we getting to the goals that we need to get to? Where are more problematic areas that we need to focus on? And I appreciate, I have requested this type of change for a couple of years, and I appreciate the audit that went into deciding how we comp to other universities, how we have approached this in the past. And I think it's more in line with a professional presentation, and certainly in timing it in the fashion that we are, it fits better with what would a normal board would see over the course of a normal fiscal year. So I have no problem moving on this. So count that as a motion.
All right, sir. We have a motion on the floor to approve the faculty and staff personnel action. Do I have a second? Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. The next item we have is an information item, the quarterly financial statements. Susan?
Okay, this is just as a reminder, this is our first year presenting quarterly financial statements for WKU. Therefore, there's no comparative data. So the statements are presented just with the 1 year. So the comparative data will start next fiscal year. This is information only, no action required. There are two components of the quarterly financial statement: your balance sheet As a reminder, that's an accumulation of assets and liabilities over time. Your income statement is a snapshot representing at this point 2 quarters of a full fiscal year. These statements are unaudited and therefore information only. So the statement of net position for your balance sheet, your cash equivalents / investments are lower than the prior year, specifically for 3 reasons. One would be your financial performance, your operating performance in the prior fiscal year 23. Our current year operations, which we just had a projected conversation about, where we're making progress towards turning that and coming in a better position this year. And then finally, capital construction. So as you plan for these projects, when you actually, even though you're saving money like you would personally for the projects, once you actually start the construction, you start spending some cash. So that's what you're seeing here. Some of the capital projects are reimbursable, as asset preservation, the Gordon Ford College of Business, the football press box and Hilltopper Fieldhouse. All of these are reimbursable. Accounts receivable, those are trending as expected in prior years, primarily because of outstanding spring tuition collections and your federal Pell and your CAP program. What's received, as AR does, you'll see an increase in your cash position. Long-term obligations will continue to decline during the year as you make your debt service payments. Your statement of revenue and expenses and changes in that position, that's simply stated your income statement. So you'll see your operating revenues of 109 million. This represents about 75% of your operating revenues for the year. So basically all of your tuition revenue is pretty much received at this point, except for a small amount for summer. Operating expenses of about 177 million. Your non-operating revenues, that's state appropriations and grants and contracts through December, of about 87 million. So we're seeing a nice increase in net position at this point in the year of about 18.8 million. As we've discussed, Chair Brody, our pension and OPEB assumptions are not included, just because that's kind of we won't know until the end of the year, until we get that report from the pension folks. So that's all on the statements.
Again, Susan, I want to thank you and your department for the effort in preparing these statements. I know it's something that we've talked about in the last year or so, and we're there, and I appreciate you in that regard. Any questions on this?
Regent Brother, will you talk a little bit about, as somebody who comes from the not academic world, why it is seeing a net position increase and this new kind of report that I know you wanted to see, because it makes more sense to you as a business person and a banking executive. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. To me, I want to get something that is in my comfort zone so I can see it, and hopefully there are some other accountants want the same. When you're talking about budget and so forth, there are so many things that, to me, kind of defy my logic, because principal payments in budgets are negatives, that they affect it. Principal payments in the accounting profession, in the for-profit, that's just part of cash flow. It's not an income statement item. So those changes are quite different.
Fund-based accounting makes limited sense outside of academic.
Well, it makes good sense to Susan. I'm having a little bit of a hard time getting there, but hopefully in toward the end of my 6-year term, I may get there. So Susan, again, thank you so much. I will now call on our internal auditor, Bruce Wiseman, for his quarterly audit report.
Thank you, Gary. We got a quick presentation for you all, as usual. And again, thank you all for the time today. And thank you to Brian and team for clearing off the sidewalk so we can get in here today. All right, per usual, we're gonna hit 4 topics today. We're gonna get you a quick update on the audit plan, the hotline, other updates in the office, and then what's coming down the pike here in the next 3 months. You can keep your eyes out. So we're 6 months in, and this is where we've spent our time in our office. The biggest slice of the pie there is project time. We're at 56%. I'll tell you, that's a little bit lower than what I would expect or would hope to see. I would put that probably between 60 and 65 ideally. And it's a little lower than expected, partly because over in the gray bar, we got professional development at 9%. So that's the professional training that we do in our office. And that's more front loaded in the fall semester rather than the spring. So when we report to this, at the end of the year, I expect professional development to go down, project time to go up. The other part is we're just starting with our student intern program, and almost 100% of their time is going to be dedicated to project time. That's also going to increase that percentage. Then the other spots on the bar there, hotline administration, that's driven just by how many hotline calls that we've got. 5% is probably a good number there. Board support, anything we do to prepare for board meetings, be in board meetings, have discussions with board members, that's all there. Advisory services time at 4%. I'm a big proponent of advisory services. I would love that number to be as high as it possibly can be, because that means we're communicating with others around campus. We're helping them directly. It may not be an official audit project, but we're adding value to the university in that manner. And then promoting internal audit, we're just getting our name out there, and I think we're doing a pretty good job there, but it takes some time, and so that's right there. From the actual audit plan perspective, you can see the bar chart there on your left. We've got 4 projects completed, we've got 4 in progress, and we've got 3 remaining. We may or may not get to all the projects on the plan. That's a typical thing within internal audit, but if we only have 1 or 2 remaining at the end of the year, that's success in my eyes. And you can see which projects we've completed and which ones are in progress at this time. All right, on the hotline, so far this fiscal year, so this is from July 1 of this year until the end of December, we've had 3 calls come in. We've closed 1, 2 are in progress at a very high level. All 3 of those I don't think present any board level risks. We're working with management to address those, look into those, and resolve those, make any policy improvements or procedural improvements related to those. So the hotline is good. We've got 3 calls coming in, and we've got some items planned that I'll tell you about here shortly. Just a quick reminder, if you see something, say something. You can call the hotline, you can call me. The big thing is, if you see it, say something. That's it. If it turns out not to be a big deal, no harm, no foul. But if you think there might be something there, please reach out. Other updates. So consultations, I talked about this in October, and this was one of our strategic goals for this year, was to have 25 consultations throughout this fiscal year. We're at 16 so far. So we're ahead of the 50% mark there. And as I mentioned in October, those can be small items, those can be big items, but the overarching commonality between those are people from the community are reaching out to us. They are being proactive, and they are saying, hey, I've heard of internal audit. It comes back to promoting internal audit. I have heard of them. I know who Bruce is. I know who Caitlin is. I'm going to give them a call, and I'm going to get their opinion on something. So 16, again, we're ahead of where we wanted to be. And I think that's probably the happiest number I've got on this whole chart, is this one. It warms my heart. Increasing campus awareness. So part of that promoting internal audit, we presented at Professional Development Day. Our session was titled Artificial Intelligence, Ready or Not, Here It Comes. It was a standing room only session. We had well over 100 people in the room. Marco, who spoke earlier, was in there. And I think it was a great discussion that we talked about the benefits of artificial intelligence. We talked about the risk, and we had great audience participation talking about how folks on campus are using it. Not even just the academic side with teaching and learning, but staff and how they're using it in their jobs to do their jobs faster, better, quicker, and to watch out for some of those pitfalls to make sure we're using it properly and safely. And then team development, like I mentioned, we've got our student intern starting. Her name is Ellen Henderson. She's over in Gordon Ford College. She's an accounting major. And so far, she's only had 2 days of work with all the snow and ice, but we look forward to be working with her this semester. Looking ahead, our external quality assurance review, we are preparing for that by doing a self-assessment in our office. We're in the middle of that right now. It's going great. If anyone loves to do checklists, let me know. I'll send some your way because that's what it is. That's what we're honing in on. And we've got our external review team tentatively scheduled to be here in May of 2024. We'll be reaching out to some of you on the board to meet with them, to talk with them, and so they can get your perspective of how internal audit is working here at Western Kentucky. Same with you, President Cook. All right, since it's the spring semester, we'll be doing our annual risk assessment where we're reaching out, talking with others across campus. What are the risks that you see? Where are there opportunities for improvement? Something we're going to be doing every spring. Every year, that process will have a little bit of a different flavor. Last year, we did a lot of surveys and a lot of interviews. This year, we might cut back on the number of interviews or at least interview other people. Still do some surveys, get some data to find out what the campus community sees those risks being. So with that said, if I spoke with you last year and you don't get a phone call from me, but there's something you want to tell me, please reach out. My phone is always on. I want to hear from anyone that wants to tell me anything from a risk perspective that they want to share. Finally, increasing campus awareness. We've got a email that we're planning to come out in the next month or so. It's just letting people know, hey, this is the hotline. This is what you should be reporting. These are the kinds of things you shouldn't report. You should go through other channels to express this concern. So a little bit of education, a little bit of awareness. And then finally, just pure fun, the last bullet item, our second annual internal audit March Madness Challenge. If you love watching the basketball games and filling out a bracket, this is just something fun to join in across the campus. There's no money involved. There's no gambling. There are legal implications with that. There's NCAA compliance implications, and we don't want any of that, any of the problems. So it's just good fun and bragging rights to see who knows the most about college basketball here on campus. So with that said, I'll take any questions that you'll have.
Any questions? Bruce, I'd just like to thank you and Caitlin for the time that you spend with me in person, my phone, email, so forth. It's still a learning process, as I said earlier, so I certainly appreciate it. Even internal audit, but internal audit the same way. If you're looking at financial statements another way, internal audit is definitely coming at it from a different perspective. So
thank you, Gary.
All right. Thanks so much. Mr. Chair, that concludes financing budget.
Very good. I've been informed by Regent Dennison that the information item that she was going to have presented today has, because of the weather, I assume, had to be canceled. So do you have anything else on the student affairs? All right, then we'll move right on to executive committee. We have an information item by Mr. Todd Stewart.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to be in front of you. And I realize the only thing between you and the rest of your day is me. So I won't get in the weeds too much here, but I do appreciate the opportunity to talk about our academic performance. You know, when I talk about the success of our programs and the championships that we win, I always try to point out truthfully that it is done with true student athletes. And so again, I appreciate the opportunity to be here today, President Cavoni, and to the board to talk about this. So the main thing I would like to point out is, a lot of times when athletic departments will talk about a GPA or an average GPA or something like that, it's sometimes because a few programs are exemplary, but many of the other ones aren't. And so the few that are strong bring everybody else up. But that's not the case here. I mean, that's the number one thing that I would like to get across is much like the athletic success, the academic success in our programs is across the board. And so, the average cumulative GPA, we have 354 athletes. The average GPA is 3.18. 10 of our 14 sport programs have a team cumulative GPA of 3.0 or higher. But beyond that, the first bullet point there, every sport program has a team cumulative GPA of 2.84 or higher. So the worst team GPA we have of any sport program is a 2.84. Football has a 2.94. Men's basketball has a 2.86. Those are high compared to industry standards. Football and men's basketball GPAs generally across the country are not nearly as strong as what ours are. Equally as important, 65% of all of our athletes have a cumulative GPA of a 3.0 or higher. And it probably, something that doesn't get talked about a lot, but we don't have hardly any poor performing students at all. I mean, again, of the 354 student athletes that we have, only 10 have a cumulative GPA of a 2.0 or below, just 3%. Next slide. A couple of the fall programs that are finished, again, it's true student athletes, but they're obviously succeeding in their sport as well. I mean, football is now won a bowl game in 7 of the last 10 years. One of only 7 programs in the nation with a bowl win in each of the last 3 seasons. We did a study with the Nielsen group this past year because we were on television a lot, and just to determine what the value of that was, and it was over $34 million in media exposure just from the 2023 football season alone. And that's really not just exposure for WKU football, that's exposure for WKU, exposure for Bowling Green. And what that means is if we were to, all the airtime that we had, if we were to purchase advertising, it would have cost over $34 million to generate that kind of exposure. And then, our head coach, Tyson Helton's been here 5 years. We've been to a bowl game each of the 5 years, and he's still here. And that's obviously historically very unusual. And we won a bowl game 4 times, including a record comeback this past year. We weren't happy about being down 28-0, but fortunately that wasn't the final score, and it was a nice way to finish the season. I would just wrap up with volleyball is that there's 344 Division I volleyball programs, and volleyball has become a national sport from the standpoint every program in the nation, every school in the nation wants to be good at volleyball. And what I mean by that is you have other sports like hockey, lacrosse, nothing against it, but they're regional sports. Not everybody in the country has those. Everybody does have volleyball, and everybody wants to be good at it. And yet there's only 12 programs in the nation that have won an NCAA tournament match and finished the season in the top 25, and now each of the last 5 seasons. And we're one of those. And our head coach, Travis Hudson, who he's going into his 30th year this coming year, we're going to celebrate that, the fact that he's been here for 30 years, but in the 29 years that he's been our head coach, he has a 100% graduation rate. And probably even more surprisingly, in this era that we live in, only 2 players have transferred. I mean, to have 2 players transfer in 29 years, I think speaks volumes about the culture that he's created, the culture of success, but the culture of belonging, that everybody wants to be a part in. And, what I would wrap up with, put it on the last one, this isn't hyperbole. I mean, I say this when I speak that, I really do truly feel like we're one of the best success stories in all of college athletics. And so what I mean by that is, you all follow college athletics. The landscape is changing almost daily. I mean, it's a very turbulent time out there for a lot of reasons, both conference realignment and transfer portal and name, image, and likeness, and just the spending that's going on. It's never been more competitive and never been more turbulent. Our budget, it's in the bottom third in the country, but yet we're succeeding at a high level with the people that we compete with less resources. We're winning championships. And then like we talked about today, the academics are strong, but I feel like in the process of all this, we're elevating other people too. The $34 million in media exposure shines a bright light on people way beyond athletics. So that's why I really feel like it's one of the best success stories in all of college athletics. And certainly all the credit to our coaches and our athletes. I mean, our coaches recruit true student athletes, and they truly are dedicated to be here and ultimately with a degree. And I'm very happy that they are.
Did I hear a figure recently about the economic impact that WKU sports was having on the local community?
Yes, you did. Thank you for asking that. And I'll have that number, a final number in the summer. For that, we partnered with the Bowling Green Convention and Visitors Bureau, and they asked for data. It measures essentially hotel night stays, meals, things of that nature. And in our fall sports alone, our fall team sports alone, which were football, volleyball, cross country, and soccer, it was a $3.4 million economic impact.
So say that figure again.
$3.4 million economic impact. So I mean, what does that mean? I guess if you just cut to the chase on that, if we didn't have an athletic department, that's $3.4 million that would not be spent in Bowling Green, Kentucky to work. That's all related to hotel night stays, food purchases related to athletic events.
Thank you for that.
Yes, sir.
Now, I have to say that I've gotten to work with you for a long time, and our success depends a lot on you too. And I think you've done a wonderful job, and I don't know how you navigate the current environment. It's got to be incredibly difficult with the portal and all those things. So I think we're lucky to have.
Well, thank you. You know what I would say, obviously I talk to my peers and we share stories all the time. And I'm very fortunate to have a very supportive board. Our board's always been supportive, enormously supportive president, who's with me lockstep on everything. And again, great coaches. I mean, our coaches are phenomenal people. They really are. They're about winning. I mean, obviously if we keep score, we want to win. I mean, that's a goal, but they're about developing our athletes as people too, and preparing them for life after the year. And I think they do a great job of that. And then our athletes, I mean, they're the ones in the arena. They're the ones that they're on the field to play. I just think they do a tremendous job of succeeding in what they do, but achieving that balance in life to also excel academically and just the way they represent, the university. I feel very good about that, and I know they do too.
I will add to that the appreciation that we do athletics the right way at WKU, and to our coaches. I get an opportunity sometimes to go be part of practices or preparations in various ways. I'm just there watching, and I will tell you the accountability that our leadership expects from our student athletes. But these folks are great teachers too. And so I think sometimes we lose sight of the fact that good coaching is actually good teaching. And some of the most important lessons that these young people will take into their careers is around how do you have discipline? How do you show up? How do you operate as a member of a team? How do you hold yourself accountable? How do you hold your teammates accountable? At the end of the day, winning is about the score, but it's about a lot more. It's about these young people getting degrees and going to have amazing careers. And their graduation rate is almost 20 percentage points higher than the university's graduation rate. These young people are tremendous on the field and off. And so I just want to commend Todd and thank him. We've talked about budget challenges in a pretty stark way. And the work that he and Hilltopper Athletic Fund and the marketing folks and the fundraising folks have done to create revenue opportunities to balance out some of that expenditure has been terrific. And so I'm confident with where we are and where we're headed. And I know what a heavy lift that is. And to the greater Bowling Green community, I appreciate what you do, but we need you to do more. And that's the message that everyone, I think, hears from us now. We have some important announcements we hope to come in the next several months around deals and opportunities, but we need more. And I appreciate the aggressive nature that you've done in a quiet way behind the scenes that will become public.
And in that same vein, if we go back to our August retreat and we talk about knowledge towns, the university really is integral to not only current success, but the future success of Bowling Green and the community. And we need to remind people of that. And athletics is part of that. And when you talk about generating revenue for the community, that's important. And we do need them to help as much as they can.
Any other questions of Mr. Stewart or comments by anybody?
I have one comment, not related to Todd, but I shared with the board yesterday an email from the Student Life Foundation, and I thought it would be appropriate for me to say a little bit about that today at the conclusion of our meeting. So the first thing is, when you have challenges in an organization, it gives you an opportunity to live your values. And everything we do here at the university is designed to protect and take care of our students. And so the Student Life Foundation made a difficult decision to relocate students from Hilltopper Hall. On Wednesday morning, they received preliminary results and information about that building. We had seen some shifting on the external walls in the fall semester. Looked at it internally, but decided to get some Student Life Foundation decided to get some outside expertise. And the preliminary findings suggested to the Student Life Foundation that it would be in the best interest of our students to relocate out of Hilltopper into other places on campus or off campus. Never an opportune time. I know people wish they had more notice, but they did not have those results or those preliminary findings until Wednesday. And 24 hours later, they had a plan and a communication effort to talk with those students and get them relocated by the 4th of February. And then number 3 is that I want to give kudos to Ethan, Catherine Deloche, and everyone who's working hard on this, making sure that we take care of every one of those students. There is always uncertainty around relocation, but they're doing an outstanding job of being responsive to those student needs, helping provide as much information as possible to help guide their decisions about where they might want to move, including PFT, Douglas Keene, McCormick, or off campus. And we're gonna continue to work to make sure that even through a difficult time, those students and those families know that we're supporting them, that we moved as quickly as humanly possible, given the information that was shared on Wednesday with the Student Life Foundation board, and then we're going to continue to support them.
Thank you very much for that information. Do we have anything else that needs to come before the board? Let me just share with the board that I will not be able to be physically present for our March meeting. Our vice chair has agreed that she will preside over that meeting. So Vice Chair West will be presiding. I'll be present by Zoom, but cannot be physically present. And we felt like the meeting would flow better if someone was here physically presiding over the meeting. I want to thank everybody for being in attendance today, either by Zoom or in person. It's kind of a nice day outside, but we've had a great crowd here, and I think everything has gone well. It's been a good committee meeting, I think. Does anybody else have anything that they want to offer or comment on before we adjourn? If not,